Yes, go ahead, Sam. You go first.
Okay. Hi, Teresa. As you know, I'm Samantha Sherr with Movement Mortgage. I'm in the top 5% of loan officers across the country, and I own my own house. I just sold my first house and now bought my new house. And I have two little girls who are 7 and 10, and I made Belgian waffles last night because that's my favorite meal, breakfast for dinner. And that's it. Shannon, you?
Awesome. Oh, I feel like having Belgian waffles.
So good. You should come to my house. I have a really good maker.
I'll come play in the pool with the kids.
Yeah, great.
My name's Shannon Shue. Teresa, we've met before. But yes, a little bit about me. I'm in the top 1% of KW agents across the country. I own 9 units myself. I'm building a 10th one. I am looking potentially by the end of the year, getting into a commercial size property anywhere between 10 and 15 units. Just looking for the right market. That'll be my out of state purchase. So out of LA purchase, because I am looking in other parts of California. I love Vietnamese spring rolls. I'm kind of obsessed with them. And my vision for the world is connection through and vulnerability. So I really think that being able to connect with people, being able to meet anyone in the world, being able to go there vulnerably is what actually life is all about. So a little bit of our agenda. Sam, you want to take it away?
Yes, so we, Shannon and I just read Set for Life by Scott Trench, and he talks about 3 strategies for financial freedom and like three steps really. So it's saving, he breaks it up into nice little nuggets so that it doesn't feel so overwhelming, like you have to walk away with 100,000 in savings in your first month of doing this. Right. So it's saving your first 25,000, then building that runway to get to about 50, and then building the 100,000 that sort of gives you that financial freedom to do the things that you want to do. So we're going to tackle the book in those parts if you want to move forward, Shannon.
Sure. And then, one thing I will just mention that, I mean, Sam, you and I look at numbers all day, and Teresa, you are in finance. This book is kind of set around sort of the average priced home in the United States, and we're in a very expensive market. We are double the average sized home in the United States, if not triple, depending on where we are in Los Angeles. So we kept the numbers exactly how they are in the book, but if you want to make a doubling or a tripling of the numbers, I think it would be more true to Los Angeles. So saving your first 75,000, building a financial runway of 75 to 150,000, and then right here, earning financial freedom with $300,000 saved. So that, if you think about those numbers, I think all 3 of us here would agree, like that feels like meaty numbers for Los Angeles. These seem like very easy numbers for Los Angeles. So I just want to kind of throw that out there. But again, all the numbers will match the book, because I think doubling or tripling them, I'd rather you just double and triple them in your mind so that you know you're in Los Angeles.
Good point, Shannon.
Yes. Okie dokie. So Teresa, tell us a little bit about yourself. We know where you work and we know your name because both of us have met you before, but you share one thing you'd like to learn today.
Sure. I guess what I'm more curious about is like how to, so, because I guess where I'm coming from right now is like, do I want to buy a home or do I want to buy an investment property? And if I do buy a home, how do I get investment properties in the future? So it's more just curious as like, what is like the best game plan? Like, should the first purchase be investment or should it be something that's maybe down the line?
Awesome question. It's going to get answered not only through the book, but through Sam and myself kind of being the bookends to the experience.
Yeah.
Anything else, Teresa, that you'd like to learn? Even if it's a little obscure, it may not be covered today, but we can always try to fold it in.
I mean, I guess when I was in school, I actually took like, they called it an honors course, but it was basically an entire like additional section that was focused on just like rental properties and kind of the tax benefits of that. So maybe learning a little bit more about like, what are the benefits of just plain home ownership versus like an investment property ownership?
Sure. Yeah. I can speak at length of that. I could probably make a whole presentation on just that.
Right. Yeah.
By the end, there's a little bit tucked into here on tax benefits, not much. But in the end, we'll circle back and we do the Q&A. I'll be sure to address it there and maybe like 2 main points.
Okay. So this book is based on a full-time median wage earner of $50,000 a year with very little savings to start. So Shannon set that up, but that's what this is based on. And then you can always double or triple that.
Awesome. Yeah, I think 100K is a pretty solid salary in Los Angeles, and 150 starts laddering up into a little bit more of a meaty salary. So keep it in that range for here.
So at the beginning, he talks about building the first 25,000 through being frugal, but it's less about what we all think of. Oh, we have to save money. I'm going to stop eating out, even though we all have with COVID. But I'm going to stop buying frivolous things. I'm going to stop going to the movies and going on vacations. It's actually totally opposite. Which at first I was like, well, that's a good hook. I like that, right? I can go on more vacations, and then what do I spend less on? So a lot of what he starts the book out is actually looking at this next graph that's on the next page. If you want to go to the next one, Shan. Okay, so looking at the largest part of someone's spending habits, it's housing, right? 41% are probably more if we look in our like very backyards, right? People in Venice or whatever, right, are spending probably 70% of their income possibly on housing. I just talked to a guy yesterday who's spending $8,000 a month on his rental. It's like, what? He said, I think I should buy. I said, I agree. You should have bought yesterday. So what Scott Trench is doing is saying it's probably the best idea is what he said is to start to reduce your costs that you're spending in those bigger areas. So reduce your housing expense. Food and beverage, yes, it is a bigger part, but reduce the transportation and the housing. And what he said was living in the coolest area of town. So like living in Santa Monica, right, is going to be more expensive unless you found rent control. But if you live in Santa Monica by the beach and your office was in Century City, that was kind of a commute, right? Before COVID, that could probably take you 35, 40 minutes just to get under the 405 over to work. So what he said was find an area that's not super pricey, that's as close to work where you could possibly just bike to work. And in California or in LA, a lot of people can do that. And that way you can then reduce your cost for housing, reduce your cost for the car insurance, and then just the basic time in the car, that commute is, you could be using those hours just for enjoyment. But also, as we know with COVID, like we have so many more hours on that now Teresa, can go start looking for a house, and you can start thinking about investing in other ways, or come up with some side gig that gives you, more pleasure than what you do on a normal basis that might pay you too. I thought that was really cool. I really liked that graph. It actually, I think, had the most impact on me in this whole book.
Awesome.
So how can we change some of these big things? Shannon introduced me to this word, house hack. I had not actually heard it before I even met her like 5-6 years ago. Get roommates, right? I mean, if you are that $50,000 median wage earner and you are renting an apartment that's close to work, and maybe it costs those $1,000 a month, ready, like in middle of America, maybe you should get a roommate, and that way you can turn that $1,000 into $500 per person or more, right? And Shannon and I in other classes talk about buying a duplex or a 3 or 4plex, right? Or even we've talked about buying a duplex where there are 2 separate units. You can actually see those, where the front unit might be like a house and the back unit is just like or maybe it's 3 units, right? The front unit is the house, the back unit is like 2 units shared wall. So the front unit you live in, but maybe there's 2 bedrooms in the front unit. So you house hack and you rent those other 2 rooms in the front, and you have renters in the back. So now you're buying a house and an investment property all at the same time. And that's Shannon's and my philosophy for really being able to invest in your future and answer your question, Teresa, of like, what should I buy first, an investment property or my owner occupied? Well, if you bought a duplex or anything like that, you'd be able to solve all of that. And then as we get further into the book, he talks about buying a property that's easy to rent to then go buy the next one. So it sort of starts you out on the right foot. He also said, have healthy snacks. If you always have healthy snacks, then you're not going to be going to go buy the unhealthy snacks, which then make you sick. And then you need more insurance to cover your costs because you have all of these terrible things happening to you because you're eating Doritos every day. So have healthy snacks, and you don't necessarily need to stop eating out because that actually gives you pleasure and makes you happy in your life. So, but making sure that you have good food at the ready, then you're not spending so much extra on other things that don't fill you up or affect your health later on. Cut the cord. I think almost all of us have already done that. So, using all of those instead of paying for cable and those things that cost so much money. And then really, I think that most people or most places that you find will say save 25 or save 30% of your income every month. He says save 50% of your income every month and put that away. And finally, the fixed expenses are what's holding you back. So the housing, if you're already living in a high cost neighborhood, if you could, I just did that with my husband. We were living on the west side in Brentwood for so many years. And because of COVID, we were able to work from home forever. And so we moved out to Westlake Village because now we have so much more space. We have no commute. And we got so much more. We don't have to pay for private school. A lot of people say in the book too, he said, every parent wants the best for their children. So they're going to send them to private school because they feel like it's the best, but you don't actually have to have the best. Kids, now that they're in public school, they're super happy. They're learning. Everything's great. It's funny to think that you could get something for free, like public school, versus pay so much money for it. And those are comparable options, right? So try to reduce a lot of these fixed expenses because then you can start to save more of your income. All right, Shannon, add to anything?
Yes, I just want to add. So I house hacks. I've done almost everything in this.
Trick in the book, yeah.
As a book. And I'm a big fan of Bigger Pockets, and Scott Trench is a contributor to Bigger Pockets. I think it's through Bigger Pockets that Scott was discovered, and then they sort of backed him on creating this book. So house hacking for me, when I first started, I was able to purchase a home, and then what I did is I house hacked with Airbnb. At first, I house hacked with a roommate, so he just rented from me, plain old roommate. Then when he moved out, I had another roommate. These are all friends, so they were people I knew and liked hanging out with. And then when my second roommate left, I was like, oh, you know what? I'm going to try Airbnb. And pretty much I went from collecting $900 a month for a 1-bedroom with a bathroom to collecting on the low end $1,400, on the high end $2,700 a month for a bedroom in a house. And my mortgage was only $1,650. So a way to save a lot of money fast. I was able to save 50% of my income. And cutting the cord, yeah, I wasn't even much of an internet. Cable. I didn't need internet, but not much of a cable person. So what I did though was I shared a Netflix account with my brother and then another Airbnb home that I had. So then we had 4 televisions looking at Netflix. And we only could have 2 users at a time. So sometimes I turn it on. It's like all the users are using this. I'm like, well, not watching television now.
Guess I'll be reading a book.
I'll be reading a book. I will go look online and find a YouTube video that I will watch for free. So I made a lot of compromises to save very aggressively. And that didn't include the first quote 25,000 using Scott Trench's number. To really get to where I was able to buy that home in the first place. Because saving that first 25,000, oh my goodness, took forever. I had no other leverage. All I could do was save money. So I saved a little more than that, but yeah. Okie dokie, Sam.
Okay, moving forward. He also touches a little bit on bad debt versus good debt. So I'm sure we all understand high interest debt is bad debt. So if you have big credit cards, which many of us obviously try to stay away from, but the credit cards are the ones that have the very high interest rates. But student loans and car loans are typically low interest rates, and mortgages obviously at an all-time low. Once you start saving money and able to pay off some of the bad debt or the highest interest debt first, that's going to start improving your credit score. having a good credit score helps you get those other good debts at a low interest rate. So when you start off, maybe sometimes people that I know, a lot of buyers who I work with will say, well, I didn't pay my student loan at first, but then I started on track. Then I got on track because right now their credit score may not be so great. So what can we do to improve their score so that they can get the best interest rate for their mortgage? And the way they do that is by starting to pay off that credit or that debt that's not so good. And then that score starts to increase exponentially over time. Next. Make sure you always have an emergency fund, pay off that debt, and build that reserve. And then how to build the reserve. So once you have some of this money, what should you be doing with it? Which is a great next step. Buying a house, investing in some sort of valuable asset, and pursuing a career opportunity once you have a lot more money down the road. So he also talked about 5 ways to buy a first property. And this is sort of in importance of least to greatest importance. So from the top, buying a luxury home is not his favorite. It's his least favorite type of house to buy because, you know, if it's, you know, you could lose a job, something could happen to your health, and then you're stretched to make the payment, and it could just be a really terrible investment overall. Buying a reasonable house, again, it's a reasonable house for him is like a home in a nicer area, right? Maybe not the fanciest of houses. Yeah, it's great to buy in a good area that's appreciating, but again, you still have those other concerns if you lose your job, if you get sick, if you can't make that payment. And then he starts to think of other ideas. So buying a home the smart way, really trying to figure out, when I talk to buyers, some buyers, very few actually, will say to me, I've been pre-approved for 600,000, but I only want to buy at 400. Most of them are like, what's the highest I could get approved for? Because in LA, it's so hard to afford anything. And I understand that they're trying to push their purchasing power. So what Scott Trench is trying to say is, if you've been pre-approved for a max of, let's say, $1 million, maybe you should think about ratcheting that down to maybe something like 700,000, so that you feel like no matter what, if you lost your job, you'd have enough savings to make up a couple of months of payments and so forth. So buying it in the smart way. Otherwise, Shannon always gets these calls, buy a house to maybe live in and flip it. It looks great on HGTV, but it never ends up that great, especially if it's your first time. Right, Shannon?
Sorry, yes, I'm just chuckling.
Oh God, and everybody wants a new, you know, where's the deal, Shannon? Show me a great deal and I'll buy it. And Shannon's always like, I'll buy it first, but I'll let you know what I've done to it. And then finally, buy a house hack. And that's what we're going to spend a lot more time on in the coming slides. So buying a house that, like we had said, that maybe has a separate unit in the back, or being able to buy that house that has a lot of land that you can buy and create an ADU, but then also within your own little house, if you have more than one bedroom, renting out those bedrooms so that you can start to have them pay your mortgage.
Yeah, Sam, I saw this slide and I was like, oh my God, I love that. I love it because it's a ladder, right?
Yeah.
Ladder from the buy house hack, ladder up to buy live and flip, home smart way, buy a reasonable home, and buy a luxury home. And I work with clients that start on all parts of the ladder. They usually have an idea of where they want to start in the ladder. Like, I want to buy a home the smart way. Like, I want a luxury home. Like, I saved a lot of money. I want to get into the market. I want the best, the best, the best of the best, right? I don't want to mess with this other stuff. So everybody has an idea. I like to present at least one ladder rung away from where they are, right? I don't like to go luxury and then I'm like, you should house hack. It's like, you're not the agent for me, right? Because it's too far away from their vision. Everyone needs to be a little closer to their vision and then have a little bit of their vision expanded to say, okay, I see it, and I'm a no, Shannon, but thank you for showing that to me. I understand why you did that. And it's helping me educate me, and it's helping me understand what's possible. But for this purchase, going back to what I said earlier, I'm like, okay, no problem. Go back to what we said earlier, you know, what I really like is my journey has been laddering from the bottom up. And so buying a house hack was how I started. At the same time, I lived in something while I flipped it because it needed a lot of work. And as soon as I could get it livable, that's when I brought in a friend that was my roommate. And then I've actually rinsed and repeated these 2 steps at the bottom now 3 times. So I'm now at a point where, sorry.
I'll let him in.
Pardon me. But now I'm at the point where buying home the smart way, I did that already last year. I'll probably do that maybe once or twice more, or I'll be in the buy reasonable home. All this is moving up to my dream home. So that's how I've done it. Just to kind of share a little bit. The slide kind of excited me when I first saw it. It excites me again when I see it again. Okay, enough.
So glad I made a good one.
Enough excitement.
Okay, good. It was actually kind of fun to make the slides for this book. Okay, so if you're thinking about house hacking, by the way, welcome Ezekiel or Zichi, if I say your name correctly.
Ezichi.
Ezichi. Okay, so nice to meet you. And we already got started on this book that we read. Shannon and I are doing a book club presentation now called Set for Life. And at the end, if you have any questions, we can for sure let you know, and we can also send you the recording too.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, where are you zooming from?
North Carolina.
Oh, nice. Okay, great.
These prices are going to be just up your alley in terms of
The rest of us are in Southern California, and it's a little pricey out here. Anyway, so before you house hack, so house hacking is a way to be able to buy a property or rent a house and rent out the other rooms within the house, so it can help you pay for the rent or the mortgage. So if in the book, Scott's saying to purchase a house, you want to make sure it's affordable with conventional financing. So as the lender, I get lots of buyers who come in and ask me, what's the minimum down payment, right? To buy a house, there's several different loan programs, but it's always a good idea to use some of the lower down payment programs so that you can use a lot of the other money that you have to either fix it up or buy the next house and have it ready for the next investment. I know Shannon will weigh in on this in a second, but FHA is a common loan program. FHA, Federal Housing Agency Government Loan Program, allows you to buy a house with only 3.5% down with a 620 credit score. So most of the buyers that I work with will easily fall into that loan program. Now there's lots of other programs that have low down payment. There is a conventional loan program, which means just like standard financing, that has just 3%, a little bit less than FHA, 3%, not 3.5%, but you have to have a higher credit score, usually around 700. And it's limited on the purchase price. In LA, it would be a max purchase price of $500, about $575,000 with 3% down. If you're going to buy a house hack, you have to make sure you're going to live in this property. All these low down programs require that the owner live in the house as their primary residence. If you're buying an investment property, you typically need about 25 to 30% down. And so that it's obviously probably taking a lot of your savings away to then go invest in something else. So if you don't own a house yet, Shannon and I will typically state that it's nice to be able to buy your first house for your own roof over your head first. Take care of yourself first. Stop paying the rent, stop paying somebody else's mortgage. And then you can move on and rent out that house and just buy and hold and buy and hold. Always looking to see if the property is going to cash flow. After you look at, I owned a condo before I got married and it didn't cash flow. I felt like I was just getting screwed every month because I couldn't rent it out, a 1-bedroom in Westwood, for how much between my property taxes, my HOA and my insurance and my mortgage, I never cash flowed. So that's something to always make sure that you're doing when you're buying an investment. And then finally, is there the chance at appreciation? So Shannon, I know you'll want to talk about this, but also about the appreciation because it's on everybody's mind. Do you think that the housing market's going to crash, or are we in a market where it's going to continue to appreciate?
In Los Angeles in particular, in my opinion, we are an appreciation market by its very definition of being expensive. So we don't cash flow. Almost nothing in Los Angeles cash flows unless you put a high down payment, which then ties up more of your capital. I feel like, are we headed for a crash? I don't think we're going to crash and burn like 2008, 2009. I do think we are due for a correction in the market, and a correction is not the same as a crash. That means that the prices will get soft. We will kind of see the backside of the curve, but it will find its way back up again. And I think that most people are not planning to buy a home for 3 years or less. And I think we will begin to see the appreciation back up on the scale again after 3 years. I get my spidey senses tell me by the end of the year and into 2022, we will begin to see a slow softening. We will, again, it's not a careening. A crash is like you just bang hard. This is going to be sort of like a slow turn the other way. How do you, I might as well ask Sam, what do you think? Because you keep tight pulses on the market too.
I feel the same. I think that paired with the fact that since 2010, when all loans needed to be extra verified, right? In the whole crash that happened, that everybody's much more familiar with in the most recent recession in 2008, is because there were no regulations on lending. If you fogged a mirror, you could get a house and or get a loan and then get the house and then not even know what you signed up for. So a lot of people got these loans that they were not really qualified for. And so then when the house prices started to sink and these people could no longer pay their mortgage or whatnot, they had to walk away from their houses. So there was a huge tidal wave of foreclosures. In this market, the recession wasn't caused by the housing. Okay, it's obviously caused by COVID. So because of that, and now because we're now all regulated as lenders, lending now, every I needs to be dotted and T needs to be crossed. Every tax return needs to be verified. And while there are a few programs and outliers out there, most people go for conventional standard financing, and now they're putting more money down. Yes, we just talked about doing a 3% down, but a lot of people are doing the 20%. And so there's actually a lot of equity in homes currently. And since 2008, houses have appreciated so much back over again that there's a lot of equity in those homes across the country. So if you are listening to people saying there's going to be a huge amount of foreclosures, I don't see that happening at all.
I agree.
All right, how to make more money. Use the time that you have. Sorry, I keep moving around our pictures here. So this is based on a person who between 25 and 54 who do have children. And it's kind of interesting to see, like, how do we spend our day, right? And so the next part of the book is trying to figure out how to use some of these other hours in a more efficient way so that maybe you can make some money during these other hours, to still try to add to that total budget of maybe having a runway of 250,000 to 300,000 available to you in the future. So anyways, if we're spending 8 hours working, then what do we do with those other hours? Don't sleep less, for sure. Keep sleeping. Okay, keep going.
All right.
So now it's you.
My turn. All right, so we're gonna go kind of skip down to the latter part. There's 3 main steps. We went through how to save about 25K, and then we kind of glossed through. The second step is really starting to make that purchase work for you, the house hacking. And then now we're going into, now you've gone past house hacking, you've gone past that investment property. We want to look at how to become financially free. And I'm a big proponent of the FIRE movement. It's financially independent, retire early. Although Scott Trench doesn't talk about this, the whole section of the book is about FIRE. It's about financial independence and retiring early. So there are 3 main things I want to, I mean, there's actually so much in this chapter that I would have loved to cover, but I picked these 3 topics. I thought they were most relevant to not only real estate, but most relevant to really getting to that point where you are financially free. So I loved this. I loved his explanation on the 4 levels of finance. First level is your cash flow negative, you spend more than you earn, and your net worth is close to 0. Okay, so that's, I mean, most people start out of college And even in their first 3 to 5 years of working, they might be in cash flow negative. You know, when you're young and you have money for yourself for the first time in your life, you're like, I've never been to Cabo. I want to buy this car that I've been dreaming about, like, you know, because I'm making my own money and I can afford this car payment. So we begin to spend on things when we're a young adult that we've never had before, and we've had money for ourselves. So we make decisions on things we've always wanted, we couldn't have. A lot of times, if we continue that into our first relationship and into, potentially settling down, having kids, then we're never going to get out of the cycle of being always spending what you have and living beyond your means. But to get to the next level, which is cash flow neutral, which where you rely on that paycheck, your default is that you end up being able to buy at least one home in your life, but then that's it. You build your life around that one mortgage payment between yourself, or if you're with a partner and you buy it together. Either way, you're relying on that paycheck. That paycheck makes the payment on the home and then lets you buy the nice cars you have. You don't have a lot of extra, but the extra you do have, you always have a nice vacation. Eventually you have kids. You kind of fall into sort of the really middle America way of living. And you build wealth purely through the equity in your home, because you stay in your home almost your whole life, and some automatic 401k contributions. So these are very baseline ways to stay cash flow neutral. You don't actually amass any wealth. And I would say most people are in level 2 or level 1. Level 3 is where you really climb out of that. You get cash flow positive. You're living well below your means and you accumulate assets at high rates. So that means you put additional amounts into investments. You don't always do the 401k contributions. You do Roths, you might try some crypto. You might do a little bit of like some real estate REITs. You look at other things that complement your already baseline fundamentals of investing. You own your own home. You are able to, you're saving, you're thinking about buying another piece of property. You've always thought about living in another neighborhood anyway, so you begin to save for that. So that really gets you in a cash flow positive, where you know you're gonna have a nice fat retirement, but you have to get to retirement to touch all that money. To retire early though, we need to get into level 4. And this is where you begin to multiply wealth. I mean, hand over fist, like, and it really begins to compound. The compound effect for you begins to really impact you within very short periods of time. And that is when you are financially free, you achieve cash flow by requiring, you do not have to work for it, right? And you surpass your cash flow passively surpasses your total lifestyle expenses. Therefore, you don't have to work. And then working for money is a choice. Like I'm a big fan of getting to 4th level, but it takes a lot of compromises in the 3rd level to then save aggressively enough to hit the 4th level. I think that I'm just teetering between 3rd and 4th right now. I cannot give up my day job, but I plan to retire early. My original plan was to retire by the time I'm 50, but if everything works out, I think I can shave about 3 years off of that. So, but that means like I'm just like being super aggressive about everything I put my money into. So here are a couple things. I'm gonna skip to this slide first and then go back to that slide. The components of financial freedom is in his equation that he has these 3 components: assets. So just really like honing in on the assets. Property, I'd say most of my assets, 70% of my assets are in property. And, stocks and bonds. I have some stocks, mostly mutual funds, and income generating business. I have really just this business that I run as a real estate agent. And then I have property that pays. I'm looking at more diversity inside of that. Then I'm looking at returns. So he mentions this a lot, like a lot of people, and I'm going to use cryptocurrency as an example because it's just been like everybody talks about crypto because of the returns. They're ridiculous. So significant investments, you need to put a significant amount into. So I'll give you an example. If you had, you did a tester of like $500 into crypto 4 years ago, that $500 has grown to probably about 11,000, maybe 13,000 now. That's a huge growth in 4 years, but you only have 13,000. It's not enough for a down payment on a home. And that trial $500 4 years ago, had it been 5,000, would be close to 100K. So I think that we need to have enough money to put in enough places where the return makes sense. And I like I subscribe to this feeling of I want 10% return on my money. Crypto is way more than that, but I'm willing to take safer bets than crypto at 10% return. But a 10% return on $1,000 is not enough money. You need to have like 100,000 to be getting 10,000 back. So again, making sure your returns are really high, which is great, but that the amount you invest actually gives you enough to live on. And then lifestyle. So the return on assets needs to satisfy a low cost lifestyle. And he talks about a safe withdrawal rate of 5%. So everything you own, you can safely take out 5 and it still grows because you're above 10% on what you're earning on it. So really liked that a lot. And that got me thinking a lot about applying it to my current life. Because I first read the book when it first came out, and then I've read it again for book club. So 5 reasons to invest in real estate. And one is, of course, reason 1 is to build wealth 3 different ways: through income, through appreciation, and through the loan amortization. The income from the actual like property income from the tenant or your roommate or both is income that you get taxed on it. But then you have the appreciation. It grows over time in Los Angeles. On average, just in the last 10 years, I mean, we've been in double-digit growth. So there is, I often equate that to a wage. If you buy a $700,000 home and it's been appreciating at above, like at 10%, it means it's worth $70,000 the next year. And then the year after that, it's worth $77,000 more. I mean, we have jobs that don't pay us passively $70,000. It's just that you can't tap into that appreciation till you either sell it or you refinance it, cash out, refinance it. So appreciation is such a strong game in Los Angeles. And then loan amortization, because it's fixed over time. You pay the same amount year 1 as you do in year 27. Then you, of course, will raise the rent. Your income you as a person making more money you make more money, you get to save more because you have a fixed mortgage. Reason 2, rental properties allow the investor control. For me, I control my portfolio. I don't have control over mutual funds. I don't know how to pick stocks better than the people that are paid to do this. It's not my wheelhouse. But I know how to manage a property. It's not a lot of property, but it's enough that I know how to manage things. If the toilet goes out, if the tenant's just whiny, but I think they're just whiny versus they actually need something done at the home. It's like learning how to be a property manager and learning how to deal with different people. And that's within my control. And it's my decision who I rent to. It's my decision to like figure out if I don't want to rent to them anymore. And those are things I have a lot of control over. Reason 3 is rental properties allow the investor to benefit from leverage. So I'm in the position now to want to start to leverage. I want to sell one of my properties, take that appreciation and get into a bigger property. I'm going to leverage in. Or I have also wanted to, but haven't done it in quite a while, take the appreciation and cash out, refinance that, and then put that into another property. I just haven't done it recently, and I think the interest rates are not very attractive for cash out refinancing, even though I have property that has quite a bit of appreciation to tap into. I know, Sam, you can speak to that.
Just get a HELOC.
Yeah, just get a HELOC, right? Yeah. And so, yeah, I haven't done that, but that's another form of leverage. My big one right now is I'm just going to 1031 exchange. take all that and don't pay taxes on it and buy another piece of property. Reason 4, real estate investors can trade up. That's the trading up is 1031 exchange. I jumped ahead. And then reason 5 is real estate is manageable while working a full-time job. I totally agree with that. I work more than a full-time job right now, and I do manage. I'm graduated now. I think that I handed over half of my portfolio to a property manager because I said to myself, I cannot be taking 11 o'clock phone calls because your toilet is stopped up. I need to go to sleep. So this is me exiting from parts of the rat race that I felt like at the beginning I needed to manage, and now I need to graduate to another level. But I really do believe that you can manage it with a full-time job. All right, and that is the end of our presentation. We always like to leave some time at the end to answer any questions, but we would like to ask for you guys, like if there's one thing you learned, we'd love to know what you learned, and then we go into Q&A for about 4 or 5 minutes. So Teresa, one thing you learned from our presentation today that really like lit a fire or had a light bulb turn on for you?
I like the different stages that you could buy a home at, is just like how to look at it. It's whether you just buy your dream home first or kind of work your way up. So I think it's more just like the stages of breaking everything down in like a step process of like, if you do this, you get to step 1, which then could lead you to step 2, or like from a home purchase standpoint, you know, either by just kind of like, you know, what is the word? I'm blanking on the word already.
Fix and flip, house hack.
House hack, yeah, the house hack. So that was one thing I was like, oh, well, maybe, I mean, I guess what it got me thinking is like, well, maybe you could do like an Airbnb, but like on weekends or something like that. So like not a full Airbnb, but maybe you could do it for like a part-time and get some supplemental income that way. So yeah, I think it just helped to put some more ideas into my mind of like how to approach the home buying process.
Fantastic. Azichi, was there anything you took away from today? And tell us a little bit about yourself, because you didn't get to introduce yourself at the beginning.
Actually, I learned some things today, though. I mean, the book, I feel like I should read it. I've been hearing a lot about the FIRE movement, but I haven't read that book. And about myself, my name is Azichi. I used to live in California. I moved to North Carolina in 2020. My husband lives in North Carolina. And since I got here, I have started doing Airbnb. Airbnb is very busy here, very, very busy. A lot of New Yorkers are moving here, so it's keeping my property busy. And I have also started investing in Virginia. I'm buying rental properties here too. It's really cheap here to buy.
Yes, it is.
Yes, so I'm using private money, and I just borrow money from my friends and I use it to buy properties.
That's great. Private.
Yeah, so I am very happy I left California.
Right?
Very happy. Yes.
Money to buy your own.
Yeah. Awesome, Azichi. Well, I'm so glad you joined us, and sad that you moved away from LA, but I think you're doing.
I am happy I left. Okay, it is a blessing.
Yeah.
Good for you. That's great. It's so pretty out there too.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, do you guys have any questions? Anything you'd like to ask? Anything that came up that you're like, wait a minute, just a little bit more about that information. I'd like to find out more. But both of you feel free to popcorn us any questions.
I guess maybe more the question is like, would you recommend getting like more of like a rental property first, or kind of lean more towards the primary residence? Because I guess what I'm thinking too, like right now I'm a single woman, so like who knows what will happen down the line, but like in my mind, everything is like, I'm going to be the one that's going to be the sole provider for any of my future incomes. So I don't know if you have thoughts on that. That would be my question for now.
So if there was confines of the question, meaning like we don't have anything else, I always say go with the investment property.
Right.
And I say that because you will ladder out of that faster than a single family home with house hacking or adding an ADU, because adding the ADU requires you to have at least $50,000 to $70,000 to build it. And a lot of times you just put all the money you've saved into the home purchase. So now you can probably house hack by having a roommate reduce the mortgage. But with a duplex, you're already going to have built-in income, or already built ADU will already have built-in income, and it's been priced into the purchase price of that home. So then you don't have to have extra money to build it. But in the future, because you might say, well, this isn't my forever home. And I say that a lot to my clients. You do not have to buy your forever home. But let me help you trod some steps so you can get to your forever home and feel like it's manageable, meaning like you don't want to be retiring to your forever home, which, you know, many of our parents did do that. They bought their home, stayed until their kids were all grown and out of the house. It was too big for them. And then they got their forever home, the place they really wanted to be in. And they're like, yeah, all the kids are out now. So keeping that in mind, I would say confines of the question, buy the investment property. For you, Teresa, just because I know a little bit about what you're looking for, I want you to also want it though. Like, I don't want you to just say, I'm only here for the money and the financial freedom. I don't really like it. You know, you have to want to be there so you can stay there long enough to both enjoy the financial upsides while also enjoy being home.
Awesome, thank you.
Izichi, do you have any questions? Teresa, do you have another question for us? Sam, were you going to say?
I have a question for Samantha. Samantha, do you know of any 100% financing loans that charge lower interest than loan sharks?
Oh, 100% finance with zero interest? No. Sorry, my gardener is right in front of my window. For first-time home buyers, there's the housing financing agencies in each state. So in California, it's the Cal HFA that allows you to purchase a property as the first time. It has to be a single family or a condo, not any units. And they help you with the down payment and the closing costs. And there's zero interest on that last loan, which helps with the closing costs. So you actually have 3 loans on your house. You have your first loan, which is usually about 97% of the purchase price. The 3% down payment, they cover, but it has interest on that. And then there's also that third loan, which covers the closing costs, does not have any interest. That's called 0 interest percent, or a ZIP loan. So you may have heard of something like that, which may have made you ask that question. But other than that, there's really nothing else. It doesn't sound like you're a first-time home buyer based on what you just said. So if you're buying a house to live in, and you wanted to stay within the county loan limits of where you're living, that usually would require a 5% down payment. Anywhere between 3.5% and 5% down.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Jumbo loans, I don't know if those are more popular where you're living. In LA, if the loan size is over $822,000, that's considered a jumbo loan. And at that point, you have a couple of options, whether you want to do a jumbo loan, which is a little stricter, requires a larger down payment, usually around 20%. And people who are self-employed have a harder time qualifying for those loans with those investors. We end up doing 2 different loans. So you do a first loan that's conventional, that keeps it under the county limit. And then you do a home equity line of credit, which isn't really for equity. It's really just a way to purchase that house with 2 loans, a first loan and that second loan. So that might be something you could consider too. And that usually you only need 10% down. In California, we do 10% down to 1.4 million in that structure.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Oh yeah, you guys, no problem. It was nice to see your faces, and thank you for joining.
Yeah,
You're welcome.
pleasure.
You're welcome. Yeah, I gotta order that book done with it.
Oh, okay. Hey, Teresa, you asked a question at the beginning that I didn't talk to, but I'll just speak to very quickly. And you said tax benefits.
Yes.
Tax benefits of an investment property. So I write off, I depreciate it. So there's just the general depreciation. Under the former Trump administration, he changed it because he's a real estate guy. He has this thing called cost segregation, which means that you can front load the depreciation, but you have to have you have an auditor that you hire. It's a couple $1,000s, but it will save you tens of thousands of dollars. And that auditor will go through and say the roof is worth this much, the plumbing is worth this much, the foundation is worth this much, the lot is worth this much, the windows are worth this much. They pretty much break out the whole home as if it was broken down line item by line item for each item. Then what you do is, it's called cost segregation. And then what you can do is you can depreciate each of those items at different rates because he created this tax loophole or Trump did, in order to then give you the depreciation and front load it. The reason you would want to front load it is because you make more money now. And by the time you retire, depreciation's over 27 and a half years. On the 25th year, you're going to be making way less money, but you're depreciating the same amount fixed. But if you can front load it while you're making more money as a working individual, then you can save more money on your taxes at the beginning. So it costs more money to do. It's probably my best hook because it's a very recent tax loophole that most people don't know about. It's usually done on larger investments, but you can do it on as little as a single family. It's just your payment for it for that auditor is going to be roughly the same as if you're doing it on a 12-unit building. But again, it allows you to front load because Los Angeles is more expensive. You might want to front load it. So those are decisions you'd make with your CPA. Hopefully that's one tip that you'll like.
That was helpful.
Awesome. Pleasure meeting you all. Can't wait. You're welcome. Can't wait to see you again.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Enjoy.
All right, take care, you guys.
Bye.
You too.